Good evening. It's Saturday, the 9th of May. You're tuned in to our 6 p.m. newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. We start with news that North Korea has test-fired a ballistic missile from an underwater submarine. The launch, that was personally directed by leader Kim Jong-un, could have far-reaching security implications for South Korea and other players in the region. Choi You-sun starts us off.
North Korea's state-run news agency says that under its leader Kim Jong-un's leadership, Pyongyang has test-fired its very own strategic submarine-launched ballistic missile. While the report added Kim ordered the underwater test-fire and watched the missile soar into the sky as it described it, the exact location was not mentioned. Based on the agency's earlier report that Kim visited a fishery complex in Sinpo in the country's northeast, it's estimated the test fire could have taken place in waters nearby that city. In fact, North Korea is known to have conducted a missile launcher test related to the development of a submarine-launched ballistic missile, or SLBM, in the same area earlier this year. Touting the success of the launch, which the North claims met the requirements of present-day science and technology, Kim Jong-un said it was a feat as remarkable as launching a satellite into space. He added that when the submarine-launched ballistic missile goes into production and is stationed soon, it will be like installing a time bomb on the regime's enemies. South Korean officials are reportedly looking into how big of a security threat Pyongyang's first submarine missile launch will pose, as the regime may attempt longer-range test firings in the future. A day after North Korea threatened to strike South Korean Navy boats crossing its claimed maritime border, South Korea's chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Choi You-sun, ordered the military to retaliate if the North launches a provocation. North Korea doesn't acknowledge the so-called Northern Limit Line, which was drawn at the end of the Korean War in 1953. Choi You-sun, Arirang News.
The United States has once again been stressing the benefits of deploying a U.S. missile defense system to South Korea. The U.S. House Armed Services Committee says stationing a terminal high-altitude area defense, or THAAD, battery here would help the allies defend against North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile threats. The committee's report also mentions how the commander of U.S. forces in South Korea has been pressing for the deployment, as it would allow Seoul and Washington to build a layered and interoperable ballistic missile defense capability. The report adds, however, that the US recognizes any deployment decision rests solely with the South Korean government. The potential deployment is a highly contentious issue both inside and outside of Korea. China and Russia have expressed strong opposition, saying THAAD's radar system capabilities would pose a threat to their national security. The Abe administration in Japan is reportedly trying to enact a time frame of 1 week each for both houses of parliament to review its decision to deploy Japanese military forces overseas. Japan's Sankei Shimbun Daily says a related bill states the Japanese Prime Minister must get parliamentary approval if he or she decides to send troops to respond to threats against world peace in accordance with the UN Charter. The bill only states the Japanese forces cannot carry out their support and cooperative missions in areas of, quote, armed conflict, which significantly expands the troops' activities. Tokyo's recently revised its Joint Defense Cooperation guidelines with the United States, which permits Japan a greater military role outside its borders. Korea and India have been holding high-level talks in New Delhi on boosting their bilateral cooperation. Meeting with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Korea's National Assembly Speaker Jung Wee-hwa said Modi would pay Korea a great honor if he were to make a speech at the Assembly during his upcoming trip to Korea. Now, Modi is scheduled to visit Korea for 2 days from May 18th. The Indian leader said he would consider it a wonderful honor to address Korean Parliament, but he didn't officially commit to doing so. Korea and India are looking to boost their relationship to a strategic partnership. Seoul is also interested in tapping into India's vast infrastructure, manufacturing and shipbuilding industries. Now, South Korea has one of the fastest aging populations in the entire world, and as you'd expect, this trend is being reflected here in the nation's capital. For more on Seoul's shifting demographics, Won Ji-hyun reports.
There's been a dramatic shift in Seoul's population. The city has announced that for the first time in history, more seniors were living in the capital than those under the age of 15. According to Seoul statistics, the number of city residents who are older than 65 was more than 1.2 million as of April. That's nearly 5,000 more than the number of young people under 15. Along with that, the city's aging index has also surpassed 100 for the first time last month. The index is the ratio of people over the age of 65 to those who are younger than 15. And a reading above 100 indicates that the elderly population is outpacing the young, meaning that now there are more senior citizens to support than those who are economically active. The index started at just below 22 in 1996, but has jumped nearly 5 times in recent years, climbing up to 100.4 last month. The trend has also raised the average age in the capital to 40.2, and people in their 40s and 50s are now the average in many areas throughout Seoul. A city official expressed his concerns regarding the quickly aging population, in addition to the country's falling birth rate. At this pace, he predicts that seniors will represent more than 14% of Seoul's population by the year 2018. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Russia has been staging its largest ever military parade on this Saturday, the 70th anniversary of the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. Thousands of troops and some of Russia's latest weaponry, including tanks, jets and even long-range nuclear bombers, have been sweeping through or above Moscow's Red Square under the watchful gaze of Russian President Vladimir Putin, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon and the leaders of China, Venezuela, Egypt and Cuba, among some others. And most Western leaders, however, boycotted the event because of Russia's involvement in the Ukraine crisis. President Park Geun-hye also stayed at home, sending a representative to Moscow on her behalf. Now, regarding some of the military hardware on display, US analysts say some of the new vehicles and weaponry on show represent the biggest modernization of Russia's armed forces in over 40 years. Today's event commemorates Russia's massive sacrifices during the Second World War, in which an estimated 26 million Russians died. Following his Conservative Party's stunning victory in this week's general election, British Prime Minister David Cameron has been outlining his plans for the next 5 years. In his victory speech outside 10 Downing Street, Cameron pledged to lead a government for one nation and make Great Britain even greater. The Conservatives won 331 seats, 5 more than needed for a majority in the House of Commons. Cameron has already reappointed 4 members of his cabinet, including Chancellor George Osborne and Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond. The other parties, with the exception of the Scottish National Party, which made huge gains, have been left to pick up the pieces. The leaders of the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats and the UK Independence Party all stepped down after their poor showings in the election. Now, Korea is known for producing youth-preserving beauty products, but now a team of local scientists has found a clue that may reverse aging in your blood vessels, at least. Park Se-young has the details.
Like many other aging body parts, blood vessels often deteriorate as we get older. When you're younger and healthy, a naturally occurring substance called nitric oxide prevents a dangerous buildup of fat and cholesterol, rinsing away plaque that can lead to heart attacks and strokes. Unfortunately, nitric oxide production drops in older and unhealthy bodies, but a group of Korean researchers may have found an alternate source. In the past, scientists could produce nitric oxide using metal catalysts, but the process was expensive and damaging to the environment. The research team from Pohang's Institute for Basic Science has developed a much more effective method. When exposed to oxygen, nitric oxide loses its properties, so the scientists used a nitrogen-rich environment to separate the key substance into a solid form.
What's significant is that we can now collect nitric oxide easily, anytime we want.
But that's just the first step. The study was published in the Journal of the American Chemical Society in April. Now the team is trying to develop medication that directly supplies nitric oxide to the circulatory system, which would be a huge improvement on current treatments for heart diseases. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And finally, leaving you with a brief look at the weather. Expect overcast skies tonight with a chill in the air. We'll see the mercury dip to 10 degrees Celsius in Seoul. Sunday is going to be a glorious sunny spring day across the entire country, with the daytime high topping out at 26 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Enjoy it while you can, though, as we'll have rain on Monday and Tuesday. With that, let's take a look at the conditions around the world. Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Saturday, wherever you're watching us, and stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll be back with our next newscast at 10 p.m. Korea time. Till then, goodbye.